particular reason why, like, I understand to some extent the view that if you're a very harsh reductionist, naturalist who says all there is matter, and they've got kind of difficult pitch to sell you how to
Yes.
explain all of these things, right? Okay, but that's not the only type of atheist, of course. So as an
Right.
argument against atheism, just arguing against a materialist doesn't seem to be a great strategy. Even if you won, you haven't said anything against the Platonist atheist or all of the other different types of atheists out there.
Well, that's the problem. Is atheism is fractured uh, in that there's so many views and sub-views inside of philosophical things. Unfortunately, from my perspective, I have to know Roman Catholicism as well as the Catholics, Mormonism as well as the Mormons, philosophy as well as philosophy PhDs. And it becomes obvious at times. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm out of my league in this particular area, and it's just what it is. But I'm supposed to know everything, and when I get mocked when I don't know everything by atheists, oh, you don't know this, sorry, I'm not omniscient. Thank you for thinking that I am, but I'm not. So we get into these issues, and all I can do is apply my intelligence, my knowledge, my expertise in these areas. And with meeting people like you, I value because you can hone, even though we disagree. And I love talking to people who disagree with me, who are polite, who are intelligent, who are educated. I very much like that. And they can say, well, Matt, that's correct, but that's not correct. This is correct. Like, I don't have any problem with that from an unbeliever. No disrespect meant. So no big deal. But I'm at a disadvantage to some degree because of the scope of the things I'm supposed to know is vast, and
Right.
I'm supposed to be
Well,
good at all of it. So it's just not
there's the
possible.
limitations that you face as a finite person having to argue against all of these different positions, which I
Yeah,
sympathize with because everybody's in that boat, right? Nobody can know all of the answers to everything. But there's a difference between being in that boat and you make yourself don't you make it worse for yourself when you make a claim like only the Christian worldview can account for something, because then you have to you've pitted yourself against everybody now.
yep, that's
Right?
correct, and I will
If you
continue to do that. Yes.
but if you make that claim, but then you don't, then you have to run through each of these.
Yep.
So I mean, it seems to me that I wouldn't make that claim unless I knew how to run through all of the different, or if I had a knockdown argument that worked for everyone. I have never heard this knockdown argument that works because I hear an argument against a materialist here, which even if I concede it, seems to me you've only knocked out a very small subsection of all of the different
Right.
worldviews you should be arguing against. And there should be a one knockdown argument. I've never heard that argument.
I don't think it is one knockdown argument. Even in the Bible, different arguments are used in different situations for different things. The ultimate knockdown argument is God opens the heavens and he reveals himself to you. And there's no counter to that. That's what happened to me.
Matt Slick's tag presuppositional argument, most charitably construed, leaves us with one of two choices. Premise 1. Either God accounts for the transcendentals, or something other than God accounts for the transcendentals. Premise 2. Something other than God cannot account for the transcendentals. Conclusion. God accounts for the transcendentals. As Alex points out, this argument presupposes that the transcendentals have an accounting in the first place, but we'll set that and the other problems with Matt's formulation aside for a later time. The conclusion for the argument is derived by the much-touted impossibility of the contrary. God is affirmed by the inability of anything else accounting for the transcendentals. The presuppositionalist, when asked to justify this claim, will undertake a transcendental critique of your position in an attempt to clear the burden. But as Alex points out, this is insufficient. Demonstrating the inability of a single worldview, or even every worldview we know, to account for the transcendentals by no means demonstrates that no worldview other than the Christian one could. To clear the burden for the second premise, you would need to demonstrate that any worldview, including those we've not conceived of, would fail to account for the transcendentals. Or, as he says, you would need to demonstrate a knockdown argument for the proposition that the Christian worldview is the only one that does, such that no other worldview could possibly do so. As we enter this point in the discussion, Matt is complaining that he can't possibly be expected to be an expert in all things. Alex sympathizes, but rightly points out that he wouldn't be expected to were it not the case that he had taken on this insurmountable burden. How can he possibly? Matt stands strong, stating he will continue to assert it even in the face of this inability. Alex, suggesting the only alternative is a knockdown, manages to draw one out from Matt. Matt's own subjective, unverifiable circular assertion that God revealed himself in such a way that he can know it for certain. And if you want to see how that argument goes, I encourage you to check out round 1. Round 2 appears to be over, and it's looking like Slick's Corner's going to need a pretty good cut man. We'll see how he fares in round 3. Cheers.